feeling you get from drifting, well, you have two different feelings. When things are going right, it's the best feeling in the world. But when things are going wrong, I find it stressful.
Let's get some fuel and tires and get ready.
Don't break the fucking thing.
A person who comes to a track, no matter what it is, if it's drifting, it's racing, obviously you want to go win the event.
The best parts of every motorsport put into one, and it's infectious.
It's the locked-in 32, but they can be demoted out of this championship if they don't perform.
Having walls at an event is second nature to us now. Some people have issues with it, but maybe they shouldn't drift anymore if that's the case in Ireland.
It takes that danger to make it what it is.
Alright, it's done. Once I got involved in it, I knew I loved it straight away.
You're so pumped when you get out of it. To me, it's the best feeling in the world.
I think it's awesome. I just love it.
It's just fun, it's entertaining, it's a passion behind it all.
I'm not in the same age bracket. In fact, I'd probably be twice the age of the average age in the championship right now.
Literally acts as a drug to your body.
Just get the wheels pointed forward.
You want to do it for your team as well.
Yes!
Don't be recording the next thing we're doing. The whole cliche, but it is like one big family, you know. It is competitive, but it's a positive place to be.
Ooh, get around the microphone. So I guess we don't run the championship anymore, so I can say what I want now. My name is Dave Egan, and I have been running Irish drift competitions for the last 6 years. So back in 2010, I was pretty lost. I didn't really have anything I was that passionate about. When I got the opportunity to go commentating on drifting, it was really just by chance. Someone said that, you're a good talker, you're into your cars, you should come and do it. So I went. I hadn't much of a clue, but I bluffed it a good bit, and I got a good response from what I did on that date. I thought it would just be one weekend. I thought it would just be a nice experience to have. Then it sort of barrel rolled from there. I got invited back to do lots more gigs, and I fell in love with it. It was just, I'd finally found a home, something that I liked more than anything, something that I would actually spend my time doing, even if it wasn't rewarding me financially. I would just do it because I love doing it. And with that passion, it led me to a conversation 3 years later where the original owner was leaving the country and needed somebody to step into those shoes. And I'd never run a business, I'd never promoted events, I knew nothing about how to run a live event. But at that point in my life, I had nothing better going for me. So I said, well, what's the worst that can happen? Let's go do this, let's try this for real, let's try and make a career out of this. I had almost this feeling that it was my responsibility to make it a mainstream thing, to make it something that everybody could appreciate. And the only way of doing that was to push yourself into unknown territory. We invited drivers from all over the world. They were very costly, very expensive. Let's do an indoor event with every single safety regulation being so difficult to do. You're doing all these events and pushing it out every time because you want to keep improving the sport. But financially, we were on, a tightrope the whole time. That fear drove us to work harder. We worked hours that I don't think anyone would have worked in any normal job because it was that life or death for us to make sure all of this worked. The Irish scene had exploded. I think it was in probably the top 2 or 3 championships in the world. And we were breaking records every single year. So the pressure starts to ramp up quite a bit with that because you get to a point where even though on the outside it's looking like $1 million, you're still not making any more than you would be if you were just doing regular events. This was a lot of false economy, and that put a lot of stress on us behind the scenes. And one thing that I got very worried about was the future of this, because we'd invested 6 years of our life night and day into this project, and we didn't own it. We didn't own the rights to it. We didn't own the naming rights to it. So we were building a brand from 7,000 followers to 250,000 followers on blood, sweat and tears, and at any point that could be taken away from you. If there was a decision made that I wasn't, I got too big for my boots, or, I was going in the wrong direction, I could be, let go from my position, and all the work that we had would be gone. And towards the end of the last season of the Irish Drift Championship, I had to make that difficult decision that we had to rebrand, we had to change, because I couldn't keep a future for everybody in this if I didn't have control of the future. So the tough decision was to walk away and start again from scratch. So it was really tough to try and change the brand, convince everybody that it was a positive that you were doing it, when really it wasn't what you really wanted to do from the start. It was just for the future and the safety of it. So in 2019, after 6 years of success with the Irish Drift Championship, we had to start again. We decided to call the Championship Drift Games because it was a platform we had a lot of social media following on. So it was scary. We were going into a season very unknown, on a brand new brand, wondering whether it would work or not. And I don't think we were prepared for how difficult or eventful that year would be.
I think the anticipation this year is a little bit different to anything that you would have seen in, previous seasons. Obviously, every season that drifting comes around, you've had a long off season, time away from the sport, and you're just excited to get back involved in it.
It's almost like there's a rock band going on a European-wide tour, only it's in Ireland.
I'm Josh Holdsworth, and I'm head videographer for Drift Games. Did I say it weird? So previously, I've been filming drift events for 5-6 years, and I've always been doing polished montage, arty pieces. This year, we kind of went behind scenes to show what goes off and all the dramas behind there.
You gonna leave me alone, man?
This is going to be in the blooper reel.
I realise you're mic'd up.
Yeah. I'm mic'd up for it.
When you're watching a drift event live, all the pits is behind scenes and all you're seeing is the actual show. It's kind of like a curtain that all the cars coming through fine, doing the battles and going back. But what you don't actually realise is there's a lot of work going on, like rushing people trying to get the cars fixed. And before, I never saw any of that. And you don't actually realise the amount of work in between the battles that actually goes on.
There's a lot of stress going into the new season because you're going in, everyone wants to get out and get a practice day in, but it's just, it never works out that way. You're always going to go in, right, we get it the weekend before, and then you're gone and something happens, the car's not back in time, and you're going to the first event, and it's just, hopefully it works. 9 times out of 10 it don't work.
I didn't know what happened. I thought she broke a half shaft just, but then everybody started waving and the wheel was laying off. So hopefully we'll have the parts here to get it fixed, but if we're not, that's my weekend over.
We have a misfire there. On mine we're getting a bit hard to clear it out.
We rang around to see where we can get some parts, and hopefully we'll get the parts that we need.
The radiator fell out through halfway through the run.
It could work or it could blow up. That's just the risk that you take, right? I'm not going to not drive.
Heading into the season, we were a little bit upset because we'd obviously lost a lot of our big name drivers. Like, we'd built them up from unknowns to superstars, and they'd now, spread their wings and gone to Europe. So we had a great talented grid of drivers, like the new breed of guys coming through were incredible, but we missed those big names, and those big names do bring in the crowds, and we were just happy that we had one big name there, which was Jack Shannon, ex-Irish champion, one of the biggest names in the sport, but he was coming off the back of a terrible year in 2018. It was tough on him, you could see his confidence going down, and he was arriving to this round with a brand new car.
When it's a new car, like, a car that like I've never got to sit into like a road going GT86. I literally got the chassis as a bare chassis, so I didn't even get to like sit in it to see what it's going to be like. The car was built around me. I was just like trying to take in as much information as I could from the car being on a lift. And when I got to the start line, I kind of had expectations. I had no expectations. I heard all these like stories of some other drivers about how the car might perform or how it does this and does that. And like I remember going up the straight and I was just like, I can either start pussyfooting around. Half of the straight I was like, you know what, fuck this. I was like just gonna launch it in and see what happens. My very first entry in it, like it was like proper smooth and proper good, and I was like, holy shit, I was like, this is actually gonna work full on, like. At the end of the lap, I just had a smile on my face. Like all the way back into the pits. I didn't even do a second lap. Just done one lap and came in just so I could thank all the lads and be like, that was unbelievable, like, and that it does work and that now it's time to move forward with it, like, you know.
In making a track, you've got to try and test the best guys. You can't make it too easy for them, but you've also got to make it that it is doable for everybody on the grid. And some guys have more talent than others and will just take any track and make it work. But for the majority of drivers, without a proper flow of the track, it can get very messy. They don't know where they're sitting on the track most of the time. It could be big collisions because guys are taking completely different lines. From watching practice, you could tell these guys were suffering out there. A lot of them in new builds and new cars, and this was a baptism of fire, and it was causing a lot of mayhem and a lot of crashes, and the drivers were sort of uneasy and there was a lot of tension about the track.
The layout for this weekend, it's kind of a compromise. I mean, we wanted to do something different. It's a new start. Let's have a new track and give maybe guys who wouldn't have been the seasoned regulars the opportunity to shine on something new. The drivers probably, if you ask any drivers, probably are not a fan of the first corner either.
It's full throttle into a very sharp right-hand bend. You know, it's basically a crash waiting to happen every single pass.
You've only kind of got that much of leeway to get it either right or wrong, or if you get in that sweet spot, you'll pull it off, but it's just a bit too tricky, which is not going to be great for battles when you have that kind of, those kind of factors. But if you sit up in the grandstand and watch it, like they just appear two cars in front of you. For the spectators, I think it's a good thing. Maybe not the best for us, but then if that leads to great battles tomorrow, or if it leads to more people sitting on those seats at the next event, well then it's a win for us. It'll be a win for the drivers in the long term. You know, they need to take the pain of maybe not having amazing battle tracks at times in order to please the spectators, because the more people get in the gate, they get the buzz from it that way.
I suppose we weren't seeing the aggressiveness that we wanted because people were being tentative because they were unsure, and with the first round of the season, guys wanted to protect their cars also, so it was a real knife edge.
One shot, now the future is yours. Go! Yeah, I was building on the lecture. Verses coming daily under pressure. Working on applying the scheme. The true style trademark is at the edge of your dreams. I'm talking one shot for the kill. The freeze can't freeze. Straight drop in the kills. I'm talking taking over pieces and shares. A bomb in the sky high. Check the movement is here. Yeah. It's one shot, now the future is yours. Go! Yeah, it's one shot, now the future is yours. Go!
What shuts it down, Dave?
The throttle cable had slipped up out because I put it on like 2 nights ago and forgot to tighten it, I think. Oh, I don't believe it. I'm already nervous for the next run.
I think drifting is one of the most harsh motorsports, maybe sports out there, because you've only 2 chances to get through qualifying. You make one mistake and that's the end of your weekend. You don't have, a reset button. And that makes it exciting, but I also feel for the drivers too, because that is a massive amount of pressure for, a normal person to be under. That you've got all your family, all your team, all your friends, all your money, everything sitting on a 40-second run, and you mess it up and you're done.
It's down to 2 runs, qualifying. It's quite an important thing. It's as important as going on to win the event on the main day.
With the amount of effort that you and your whole team put into the car, it all comes down on your shoulders to just 2 runs, and if it doesn't go well, you're going home, and you know I don't want to bring that disappointment to the team, so it's an added pressure with that there as well.
There's no worse feeling coming back to the pits after, you know, not getting through and, you know, having to get out and, you know, not apologise to your team, but, you know, you kind of have to say, well, look, what can we do? We put a lot of work in, this is the result we got to do more work before the next round, and it is quite hard to do that.
Competition is cutthroat, and you're only going to succeed if you've prepared correctly and if everything, you know, goes the right way for you, or you have that extra little bit of added luck as well.
It's a bitter pill to swallow when you do get knocked out. It's a very harsh sport, and if you do get too knocked back by getting knocked out, you're going to have a short life in the sport, because it takes its toll. It definitely takes its toll.
The first qualifying lap, I was like, okay, I'm just going to chuck it in hard, see how it goes, and then like probably have an easy run in the second one, just so I could like do my usual thing, put on a show and have a laugh. And like I remember going to the start line and Droney was there, like, and he was like, "You alright?" And I was like, "Nah." I was like proper shaking, like proper scared, because like I couldn't even remember how I had driven the car in practice. That's how much nerves. And like I don't really ever get nervous about qualifying. If you throw down a few laps in practice, you know you're going to qualify anyway, because it doesn't matter where you are in the bracket. Obviously it's better to be high, but once you're in, you're in. Battles are a different story. And like I was proper nervous.
This is the big question. Can Jack Shanahan get himself in the main event? 0 from his first one.
Leaving the start line, I was like, geez, this could go all wrong.
Big weight transfer entry. He wants to top qualifying. He wants to wow everybody. I think it's great to see him back looking comfortable behind the wheel of his very own car. This guy has been so good to this sport.
What a run from
so
Jack
good
Shanahan.
for Irish drifting, and gets it across the line. Shanahan is in the show. An 88.3 sees him jump into second position. Jack Shanahan is back.
For all of us, especially that are very emotionally involved in the sport, when you see someone's confidence go down, then to be reset and come back out looking like the champion they want to be, that gives you a lift as an organizer, because you know one of your best stars is now back to his best, and we knew we were in for a good weekend then.
Absolutely delighted.
Ryan Caldwell lights up those tyres as he throws it down onto the wall one final time for qualifying.
89 goes top of qualifying.
We built a very professional system, but it's not that professional. The teams are still, you know, self-funded. We're not making a whole lot of money at this point, and you're still trying to produce something that's hugely high quality and probably looks better than it is, really. From my perspective, you've got insurance companies who are on your back all the time, you've got banks on your back all the time, you've got venues who have targets that you have to hit with attendances, you've got sponsors that need a certain amount of viewership to justify the money they're investing. You know, if one piece of that falls apart, you're in serious trouble, and it starts to weigh on you as time goes on, because it's very hard to hit everyone's expectations. Fans want more international drivers, bigger tracks, they want everything to be $1 million. So when people criticize it, they're not criticizing a brand name or a logo, they're criticizing you and the decisions you make. And the problem is that you focus, like normal people do, on the negatives, and you start to get clouded from all the positives. So you might, 95% of drifting might be positive, but if 5% is super aggressively negative, it's natural that you focus on those criticisms. If you're not making a whole lot of money and you're putting your massive amounts of your time, your effort, and your team, and everyone around you is killing themselves late nights, you know, not sleeping, trying to get up early to get everything done, and someone can just make flippant comments to tear you down because they want a bit of internet attention, it makes you angry. Very fucking angry.
Next time on Smoke and Mirrors.
Let's get this show underway.
This is the up from drifting.
He got a little heated, I suppose. I think he was just frustrated.
You know, I publicly apologised for it after the event.
It caused a bigger eruption in my car. Send me apologies to him and stuff.